I'm Amy Christensen with the Independence Heritage Museum. Today I'm standing in downtown beneath the iconic Taylor's Fountain sign. I'm going to be speaking with Billie Kay, whose family owned and operated this historic business for 61 years. Standing on the northwest corner of Main and Monmouth Streets in downtown Independence is the Hirschberg and Rosendorf building. Erected in 1884, this architectural icon initially served as a bustling general merchandise store, evolving over the decades to house a hardware and tin store, followed by a grocery establishment. In the 1920s, the scene transformed as Sylvester Drug and Watch Repair took over the space. In 1946, the Sylvesters passed the torch to the enterprising Taylor family, and the corner remained Taylor's for over 60 years. When Taylor's Fountain and Gifts closed their doors in 2006, it was a major transition for the community and their longtime customers. Now, I understand you're connected to Taylor's downtown, which is iconic, but your family was enterprising other businesses on Main Street before the drugstore.
Yes.
Can you tell me what some of those businesses were?
Well, that was probably a little before I was born, or when I was born, kind of in that area. It's really, all what they would tell me as a child, and you know how much you listen when you're a child, right. But I was still fascinated with it. They originally came from Kansas, and Ed was in the oil fields, and his wife, Lila Taylor, was a school teacher. And Ed liked the looks of Portland, and so he got into the groceries business. He was managing Safeway grocery stores, and his son Dee was worked for him when he was in high school. And by the time he graduated, he was 17, and they made him an official meat cutter. Okay. He belonged to the union by the time he was 17. He was the youngest meat cutter for the Safeway, all the Safeway stores. And anyway, they had a Safeway store down in Independence. I don't know if you knew that.
I didn't know.
Where the mural is downtown on Main Street, where it's painted, where you see the covered wagons and the fence there, that was a Safeway store. And then the war started. And so then Dee and his brother Dick was in college, and Dee went to the service and was a guard up in Washington. And he went to salute an officer, a very important officer that came through in his car one day, and he fell right over. He had a football knee, and his knee gave out on him. Aww. So then they said we couldn't have security officers that would fall when they went to salute someone. So he went out on a medical discharge, and then they leased the building. They didn't own the building then. We rented it for many, many years. Okay. I think clear maybe until like the 70s or something. From the 40s to the 70s, they rented or leased the building.
So can you describe the atmosphere to me of what it was like? You would have been a child at the time when it was in the heyday of being a pharmacy under Dee and Marjorie.
The main life was the soda fountain. It was the largest soda fountain in Oregon, 17 stools. Most soda fountains were only like about 6 or 8 stools. But when Dee and Dick took over the store, they remodeled. Dad covered up all the old wood and modernized it, put new woods, lowered the ceiling, put the false ceiling down, and enlarged the soda fountain, put in those stools, and put in a lot of stuff. Gave it a lot of character. But in the 40s, Dad started bringing in like jewelry, billfolds, everyday appliances and stuff, toys, children's books, adults' books, makeup. When I was 13 years old, Dad wanted to bring in the newest makeup, and that was Revlon. And so Dad sent me, in order to get Revlon products, you had to have a saleswoman that knew how to apply makeup. So Dad sent me to Meyer & Frank's in Salem for 2 days to learn how to put makeup on ladies' faces. Oh. So I was the Revlon specialist in Independence.
I heard somewhere the line, if there's any news in Independence, you'll hear it at Taylor's.
That's right.
Does that strike you as familiar?
That's right. Yeah, and Dad was a real character. You talk about a big man in a little town, that's what he was. If you took him to the city, and you took him where there was a lot of other people, and you'd ask him to get up and say something, introduce himself, he would almost have a heart attack. But in Independence, he was a big man in a little town. He knew everybody, and he and his father, you could hear him when they left the drugstore. Ed, his father, would be at the grocery store just 1 block away across the street. And you would hear him the minute he was hard of hearing, and so was Dee. And the minute they left their store, they'd start yelling, and hi Joe, how you doing? What you doing? You know, how's the crops coming? And the farmers would come in. Dad not only sold things, but he ordered things for people. He said, if you want something and you don't know where to get it, come ask me, I'll find it for you. No matter what it is, I'll find it. I don't care if it's a car, I don't care if it's a necktie, I don't care if it's, you know, what it is, a diamond ring, I'll get it for you. He also was very simpatico with all the other businessmen. He was very close to the local jeweler. And because they had had a jeweler in there before, watchmaker and jeweler there before, we had little tools and things to repair jewelry. And if Dad couldn't fix a watch or couldn't fix what people would bring in their jewelry, he would send them down to the jeweler. And then he would send out stuff, or he would take the stuff right on it, call, and fix it. Partnership. He did partnerships with the farmers. If somebody said, Dee, where can I find a bushel of corn? Where is so-and-so? Dad was really close to all the farmers. They went duck hunting together, fishing together. So he knew all of the crews of the Hispanics that came in to pick the hops and the beans and the cherries and the peaches, whatever it was. And we set up charge accounts for all of the migrant workers at the grocery store as well as the drugstore, because Dad would also carry banjo strings and guitar strings and harmonicas and any kind of an instrument. Not only did we have harmonicas and banjo and guitar strings and stuff like that, and the reeds but Dad also rented the musical instruments for the high school and the grade schools. If you wanted to play saxophone at Central, you rented the saxophone through the drugstore. If you wanted a corsage for the senior prom, you came to the drugstore and ordered your corsage for the prom. If you were going to go to New York or you wanted to send a package to New York, we were the local Greyhound bus depot. And we also the driver's license. When you got a driver's license, the examiner that gave the test came to the drugstore once or twice a month and sat on the stool and had coffee, and people would come in and they would drive around Independence. That's where they would, and then he would sit down with them at a table and give them their license or not. Huh. And so there was a lot of going on, a lot of sharing with other businesses. Right. Dad just had his hands in everything. Let's look at this one. If we ain't got it, and if we can't get it, and if we don't know where it is, you don't need it. That was behind the soda fountain. So
I was just reading that the doors closed in 2006.
Right.
And that's after 60 years of
Taylor's. 61 years. Yeah.
And what was that period of time like? Or I'm sure it must have been a really difficult discussion to decide to close.
Well, I didn't want to, of course, because I absolutely loved it. But I had just started drawing Social Security. I was never. People think if you have a business, you make a lot of money. That's not true. People would say, what a wonderful job. I said it was not a job, it was a lifestyle. 7 days a week of visiting with people. And so it was very sad. It was very upsetting. So I was glad that somebody bought the building, somebody fixed it up, and that the building was kept. And I was very pleased that the city asked them to keep the sign up, because it's part of the town, yes. The Taylor sign, it's really neon sign. Yes, and so I'm thrilled to death with it.
Well, thank you so much for sharing
You're welcome.
all of this history about Taylor's. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.